So this will be part one of what I hope will be a three-part series of Louis van Gaal versus David Moyes. And in part one we're going to cover why David Moyes failed at Manchester United. Now there are many reasons old Moyesy failed at Manchester United. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure Dave's a lovely guy, but I think most people could agree he really wasn't up to the job. People saying he should have had more time, he was never given the chance, given a 6-year contract, but yeah, he should have been doing a lot better than he did with that team. So I'm going to go for about a year on after Moyes left, go for a few points on why he failed. I think the first thing you noticed with David Moyes when he was doing his press conferences, he always looked like a deer in the headlights. He looked absolutely terrified, with a vacant look on his face, and people so used to seeing Sir Alex Ferguson there were not necessarily calm, but you knew he was always in control. Moyes looked like the world was falling down around him, and he was panicking just as much as everyone else, and had no idea what he was doing. Constant denial in his interviews, with such memorable phrases as "We played well," we were absolute shite, and "We deserve to win," "I will try," "We need to be like Liverpool." And Manchester United fans sat there, "Oh my God, what are you saying, Dave? Don't say this. This is not the stuff Manchester United fans needed to be hearing." They weren't expecting to win the title that year, or maybe even this year. There was a rebuilding job that needed to be done, but he just seemed so oblivious to the fact that we were shite playing against Everton. You go, "Oh, we played well." So does he still think he's managing Everton? People were screaming at the end of the game. Transfers was another thing. The team that won the league title the year before, yes, it was a championship winning team, but that was more of the fact that everyone else was worse than we were, not that we were the best. It was an ageing squad. I think Ferguson was able to get that extra, he could squeeze that last little bit out of his players to get them across the line. And Moyes was unable to do that. That squad needed strengthening. Players are coming in, was said in hope, rather than producing actual results. The wrong kind of players was brought in. Fellaini, he's shown improvement this season, but the way he was played was not right. The signing of Juan Mata, I love Juan Mata as a player, he's a fantastic player, but he wasn't what we needed. The central midfield of Manchester United has needed strengthening for going on 6-7 years now. You can argue it still needs strengthening now, but it was not addressed by David Moyes, and it was exposed brutally through the season with players like Tom Cleverley being in there and just not being able to cope. So many subpar players: Darren Fletcher, Johnny Evans, Tom Cleverley, Antonio Valencia. Yes, they're okay players, but then they're okay squad players. Apart from Johnny Evans, who I actually cheered and celebrated when he got a 6-match ban for spitting. And when you got commentators saying Man United won the game in spite of Johnny Evans' best efforts, you know there's something wrong with your players. These players were not good enough. They're a mid-table team, maybe pushing for Europa League. Yes, they're fine, but not for a championship winning team. The constant unrest in the dressing room. When you're dealing with players like that, with massive egos, like that of Van Persie, of Rooney, The manager needs to be in control. He needs to dominate those players. They need not necessarily to fear him, but they need to respect him. Ferguson had that. They knew the wrong word to Ferguson, they would be kicked out. They would be drop kicked out of the back door of Old Trafford, and there'd be no argument. These players ran amok, like a substitute. David Moyes is a substitute teacher at the front of the class. So, oh, don't do that, children. As a pencil case was whipped at his head and he had to duck for it, smacked him in the face. He could not maintain control. This was obvious with Twitter outbursts from Hernandez and constant grumblings from Van Persie. Training routine had been changed, and that was causing his injuries and not being able to play as many games. Moyes was also somewhat tactically naive. He set up his teams more to not lose the game than to win. Made evident against Fulham last year, where the record number of crosses in a Premier League game was reached. Constant 90 minutes of crossing, and it was not working. It was not working, and there was absolute no change from Moyes. Another massive problem, the players just didn't seem motivated to play for him. When they were losing at half time, they did not seem scared to go back into that dressing room, and they did not come out and try harder in the second half. The removal of Sir Alex's backroom staff, the entire staff was thrown out and replacing people like Mike Phelan, a championship backroom team that had been Fergie's trusted right hands for years. Ferguson had taken somewhat of a more backseat rule to the training, allowing younger coaches like Phelan to lead while Ferguson would supervise. These were players that Moyes desperately needed to keep around him. Moyes had no experience of winning championship, no experience of Champions League football apart from going out in the first round, qualifying round a few years ago. No, he had no experience. He replaced them with the likes of Phil Neville and Steve Round, who I'm sure are wonderful people and wonderful coaches, or Phil maybe one day, because hopefully he'll stay up and match of the day with his boring commentary. But if you're Robin Van Persie, are you going to listen to Phil Neville? He was a good squad player. He was good at Everton. But he's not going to listen to Phil Neville. He's going to tell Phil Neville to fuck off. And apparently spending hours upon hours of practicing, defending and closing down. This is Manchester United. You don't need to spend hours and hours on defending. You should be focusing on getting the ball and putting it in the back of the net. But, of course, the main thing was the results. Inexcusable. And the performances. Every now and then you're going to get a crap result. Sometimes it's just one of them days. The keeper plays a blinder. Your strikers have an off day and couldn't hit the broadside of a bunt. And injuries, the ref makes a mistake. But there's no excuse for the middle list here of the following results all happening one season. First home loss to West Bromwich Albion since 1978. First home loss to Newcastle United since 1972. First home loss to Everton since 1992. First ever home game loss to Swansea. 3 defeats in a row for the first time since 2001. First league loss to Stoke since 1984. First home defeat to Newcastle since 72. Exited the FA Cup in the third round for the first time in 30 years. Maybe one or two of those can happen in a season, but all of them happening in one season, under one man, you look and you question Moyes' ability. Also, one more. First time Everton, Liverpool and Man City beat United away since the 1969 to 1970 season. My personal opinion of David Moyes, I'm sure he's a lovely manager. I'm sure he's a lovely guy. I'm sure he's a fantastic guy. I'm sure we'd love to go, but you could sit next to him in a pub and you could have a great laugh. But the job was a lot bigger than he was prepared for. When you have Louis van Gaal stepping in, you could see it straight away in the press conference. Van Gaal said, "I've been here, I've done this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. We'll see how long it takes the players to catch up to my philosophy." And this season Van Gaal's had his ups and downs, but you can see the progression. With Moyes, it always seemed like it was going from bad to worse, to even worse, to the ominous of having a plane flying overhead with Moyes out and a Grim Reaper at Goodison Park on his final game in charge. In the next half we're going to be looking at Louis van Gaal, whether he can succeed at Manchester United, and the thoughts for the future. So thank you very much for watching.